I'm Robert McBride, and this is Everyday People, a program in which we investigate the lives of people making a difference in our community. Good morning, actually. This is Robert McBride with another episode of Everyday People, talking to people in our community making a difference. On today's program, we are going to talk to two fabulous women that are working on Guardians Ad Litem out of the Windham County, based pretty much in Brattleboro, but it covers the Bellows Falls and Windham County region. So we have you call it the director, or you the coordinator, one of the coordinators. So we have Diane Shamus and Mimi Morton. And we're just going to let Diane talk a little bit about what the program is. I'm sort of familiar with it, but not. So just give us a primer on Guardian Ad Litem.
Sure. A Guardian Ad Litem is a volunteer who is appointed by the family court to be an independent advocate for a child who is in the family court, usually in what we call the CHINS docket. Those are cases where there might be an allegation of abuse, neglect, delinquency, or truancy. Actually, truancy, delinquency are separate cases, but where a guardian ad litem might also be appointed, and occasionally in other cases as well. And the guardian's job is to get to know this child and to get to know the situation, to be able to help facilitate communication with the child and the court, and also to be able to advise the court about what is in the child's best interest.
So is there, an age range that you work with would be from what age to what age?
From birth to 18.
Birth to 18.
Yes.
Great. And is there another kind of program that works with people 18 and above?
Occasionally, guardians ad litem are appointed for adults.
Mm-hmm.
In cases in criminal court, for example, where somebody's competency is an issue.
Mm.
But most of our guardians are appointed for children.
Mm. Great. And what are the qualifications for someone to be
a guardian ad litem? Guardians come from a lot of different backgrounds. They're adults. Mm-hmm. They're screened for their they undergo a background check, mm-hmm. but they have all different kinds of education and training. They maybe are a retired teacher. Maybe they have some interest in the law. Maybe they just have always really liked kids and they have raised children themselves. But they're adults with some maturity who are interested in children and are willing to be available and to make that time. And it requires some flexibility in scheduling because it follows a court schedule mm-hmm. and other schedules, but guardians choose how much they want to be involved.
Mm-hmm. So Mimi, are you a volunteer in this program? Are you a guardian ad litem?
Yes. Yeah, I'm relatively new at this. I started last spring in a training, and I had my first case. At first I shadowed a guardian ad litem, and I went to court and just watched cases in court, and then I had my first case in July. Mm-hmm. And I now have 5 cases.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what kind of brought you to the program?
Last winter I was feeling despondent. I wanted to do something to make things better, and I didn't know quite how to do that or what could I do that would make a mm-hmm. difference. And then I actually was having breakfast at Diane's at a friend's house, and we started talking about this, and I thought, I'm going to do this. I'm going to try to do this. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's done a lot for me, mm-hmm. I have to say, quite selfishly. Mm-hmm. It made me feel tremendously better working in this way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I imagine both things that we do, hopefully, is a two-way street. You know, we're not coming in with an agenda just to be able to, and we learn things along the way, you know, about the complexities of human nature. My gosh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Now, how many volunteer guardians are there in Windham County?
We have about 40 active guardians right now in
Okay.
our county. And we cover any case that comes into the Windham Family Court. So it's quite a large geographic area, Whitingham and all around the county. And guardians, children that we work with are occasionally even placed out of state. So we visit with children in northern Vermont, in other states, a large geographic area.
And about how long might a relationship with a client exist?
That is very variable. It potentially could be very short. It could be that the case comes into court and very quickly the court determines that there really aren't facts to support the court's involvement and it ends. But some cases go on for years and years. In some situations, I've been a guardian myself for the last 10 years, and some of my cases unfortunately went on for more than 5 years. If a child has not found a permanent living situation, then the court continues to be involved. And so occasionally kids are in the system until they turn 18. And so that might be a very long relationship.
Right, and that might change over with different volunteers handling that situation if someone's not committed to an 18-year term, or their life expectancy
That's
doesn't
right.
bring them to 18-year
Right.
term.
We don't
You know.
we wouldn't force a guardian to
Yeah,
stay
right.
on for
Yeah,
all of those
yeah.
years. But it is actually one of the things that a guardian can do. Unfortunately, so many of the other players in that process will change. The social workers turn over, the teachers or the school changes. Maybe the child is in multiple foster homes.
Right.
A lot of things can change, and sometimes it's the guardian ad litem who is the one constant throughout that long period and who carries the history with them and helps all the other players who come in and out to understand the bigger picture.
Right.
Yeah, could I add
Sure,
something? I'm just
absolutely.
beginning to feel that with the cases that I have. Also, the lawyers can change.
Yes.
And they, for example, the lawyer for the child can change, and that lawyer will need an update because the amount of time I'm discovering lawyers are tremendously burdened, and the amount of time that they have to get information, get up to speed on what's happening with the child can be, really like 15 minutes sometimes. And they're very skilled, they know what to look for, but they're really dependent on the guardians to to answer their questions and to help. And because we have more time to think deeply about the needs of the child, I'm really seeing that now. How essential the guardian's role is in the court system.
One of our primary obligations as guardian is to be in contact with these children every month. So we either see them or we speak with them, but we have eyes on and we have a relationship. We see them maybe in their home with their family, maybe we see them with their foster family, we see them in school. We can see them in all kinds of settings and we get to know who they are and what they're like, and we bring that information back with us, and we can say to an attorney, hey, we need to pay attention to this. Or you have to hear from a witness who nobody else has mentioned before. We play a very important role in helping to make sure that the appropriate information is in the courtroom.
And it must be also very difficult because it's such a relationship that you're developing to not, be attached in some way.
Yes.
The professional line of, this is over, this is it. Do you take it home with you? You're dealing with human relationships and things that are happening. It's.
Oh yeah, and there is a tendency, I think, to become obsessed with certain cases, and I think it's very important to gain a feeling that that's not helpful to the child, that they're looking at the guardian. Everybody is looking at the guardian as a neutral force, that somebody who's not going to get upset.
Right.
In a situation where so many people are upset.
And I imagine that you have, there's a kind of a network of all kinds of other things that come into play. I mean, you know, with other social service agencies or youth services or
Yes.
big sister, big brother kind of concepts. I mean, that they might also have relationships with that would carry forward. I mean,
There's a lot of that. And,
Yeah.
and in the role as a guardian, it's a tremendous introduction to all kinds of service providers in the community that you might not know about. I mean, there are so many little school programs that, apart from the public system, that are right here that I would not have known about.
Right.
I've been in the priority placement classrooms, and that's an alternative program that's available locally. And in the community house programs, which is a specialized program for kids in Brattleboro, in the Brattleboro Retreat residential programs for kids, in the Kindle Farm schools. So we go into all of these schools, we work with the mental health providers. It takes a lot of, it takes a village. You start to see many more
Yes.
players in the village and to learn how to speak kind of in their language, how to work in those different systems. And it's very interesting.
I've gained so much respect for the social workers, the tremendous expertise that everybody brings to their jobs, the judges, the lawyers. It's just extraordinary work, and I wouldn't have known about it also if I hadn't been working with them. It's great.
Right. So just remind me, what triggers something for someone to be recommended to participate in Guardians Ad Litem, or that they have to participate in it?
Do you mean the children? For
Yeah,
the children?
yeah. Why?
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, what kind of incidents happen that then the judge determines that you do this, and if you don't do this, what's the alternative?
The bulk of our cases are in what we call the CHINS docket, and that's a section of court cases for children in need of care and supervision. And they can start with a police investigation, a Department of Children and Families investigation, or through the state's attorney. But they are sending an affidavit to the court saying, this is a child who needs help, basically, who we're concerned about their safety. And it may be because of concerns that there's physical abuse, there could be some kind of emotional abuse, it could be a lack of care for basic needs. It could be that the child is chronically truant and doesn't get to school. So this is a child that people have said, hey, pay attention, this child needs help.
Right.
And the court gets an affidavit, and as soon as it gets an affidavit and there is a case, a guardian has to be appointed. And that's a part of federal law, that in all of these child abuse matters, in the CHINS docket, a guardian ad litem is necessary. So the court will follow along a procedure to see, are these facts substantial enough to warrant the court's involvement? Is it a risky enough situation that the child should be taken out of the home? Can the child stay at the home with certain conditions? All of those questions. But for every hearing, a guardian ad litem has to be present. Otherwise, they can't go forward. So because of that federal requirement, we are a necessary part of that whole section of cases. And then in a matter where a child is accused of some behavior that would be criminal if they were an adult, those are the delinquency cases. If for some reason the parent wouldn't be the best person to help the child, negotiate that process. For example, if a parent was the victim of that alleged criminal activity, maybe it was an assault, and they might have a conflict of interest.
Right.
So a guardian is asked to sit with the child in that process. And we are with them as long as the court is involved. So whether it's for just one hearing or maybe for years.
Right. Interesting.
And I want to add that the opioid crisis has, I don't think anybody needs to hear this, but I mean, everybody pretty much knows this, but the opioid crisis has torn families apart and often is the reason that a child, comes in to state custody.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's one of those, and it's one of these things that it's not about economics or where you are. I mean, all people, all children, all youth are just subject to something like this happening, right? I mean, it's not like you say, oh, there's an economic demographic that it all falls into. you know,
I-
issues come up, right?
A lot of issues come up, but I think that the opioid epidemic, I think homelessness is also one of those things that puts kids at risk and that exposes a family to more public scrutiny. And so I think we see a disproportionately higher number of people who are struggling economically, and that is part of their challenge to provide for their families and to have enough support themselves. I don't know that it's always, I don't believe they're the only children at risk in our communities, but they're the children who make it into the system at a higher rate. And that's an interesting issue, but I think that it is true.
Yeah, there are so many factors that can lead to a family breaking down, and unfortunately, the economic one is the big one around here, and jobs, and then affordable housing, huge. I mean, when you don't have a good place to live, it's very hard to raise a family well, or it's hard to feel okay, you know. So there's those two things are enormous: housing and jobs.
Yeah, yeah. So we actually have a person that has been has been involved with Guardians Ad Litem, has been a guardian ad litem for a number of years, you said, and we're going to give him a call. His name is Bill Hustis, and do you want to introduce him a little bit, or what would be great at this point is I know you said you don't have a web page, but if you could give a ways for people to get more information about the program, the telephone number, and I'll try to quietly get Bill on, then we'll put him on speaker and talk to him for a few minutes.
Okay.
And I'm going to let you then kind of introduce him to
Bill?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the way to get more information about the program is by calling the Wyndham Family Court and asking for Carrie Storm. She's the other coordinator, and she's at the courthouse, and she is the person who speaks with potential guardians ad litem and helps them through the process of getting their questions answered and getting signed up for our training. In order to be a guardian ad litem, there's a 3-day training, and we're actually getting ready for a training in this area that will start on March 14th. And so this is a great time to call and to get started in the program. We're still taking people to sign up for that March 14th training. That will be in Brattleboro.
Did you get the phone number?
I don't have the phone number in front of me for the Wyndham Family Court, but I thought that will be an easy thing for folks to remember. That's a number that's easy to find, the Wyndham Family Court.
Online.
It's easy to find online if you go to vermontjudiciary.org.
.org.
I think it's .org. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and the training is terrific.
You did it recently.
Yes. It's very intense, and at first you think, oh God, I'll never remember all this. But you take home a number of binders. I thought, oh, I can't possibly read all of this, or I can't remember this.
Hi, this is
But
Bill.
then you find you don't really
Bill, it's
need
Robert
to, because
McBride,
it's an
TV.
in-service
About to put you on with-
training. I mean, you learn more once you're actually in the process.
In the role.
That's what really helps, rather than having to read about it. But reading helps too.
Yes.
And the trainers, who are terrific.
Okay, great. I'm going to put you on speaker.
Okay.
Can you hear us, Bill? Hello?
Hello.
Hi, Bill.
Hi, Bill.
Hi.
We called you today because you have the distinction of being our longest-serving guardian ad litem in Wyndham County.
That's better than oldest.
I wasn't going to say that. How long have you been a guardian, Bill? About how long? Do you know?
I know it's over 30 years, but I can't remember exactly.
Okay, 30 years. That's a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're sort of asking people, also like Mimi, what brought you to the door of Guardian Ad Litem?
Judge Paul Hudson.
Did you know him?
Not until my sister was a guardian ad litem, and she had stopped doing it, and she came with Paul Hudson to a meeting for the Eagles, I think it was. and to recruit. And that's how when I got involved in it.
And when you were involved, Bill, how many guardians ad litem were there in Windham County?
In Brattleboro, I know there's just Jane Pike and myself.
So 2 people.
Two people. No family court.
That was before we officially divided the court system.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
It's amazing. Well, you must obviously be very passionate about it if you've kind of participated and lasted without burnout or stepping back. I mean, can you imagine not being a guardian ad litem at this point in your life?
I have slowed down. Luckily, there's a lot of them now, so yeah, I still have a couple that that I stay with, and I do go over there for EDOs. You know.
Those are the emergency hearings.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah. And so what would you say has been the biggest challenge or concept of success that you're involved with in the program? I mean, you know, what kind of keeps you going at going back and back again to work with people?
When it first started, you know, it was kind of frustrating because, you know, you go in there, oh, you're going to save these kids, and that's not what happens. Then later on, like one of the first ones I had, and everything's confidential, so you don't talk to them out when they're with their friends and everything. But he came up to me with his friends and, hey, Mr. Eustace, how are you? And these are my friends, and then he introduced me as his guardian ad litem.
Wow.
So, you know, things like that. I had one young lady come into my office, 4 or 5 years ago. I didn't know who she was, and then she told me. I said, "Oh my word!" Says I had her when she and her brother were 7 and 9 years old.
Oh.
She had been out of college and always wanted to stop in to say hi, and so she gave me a big hug and said, "Well, we always thought of you as our guardian angel."
Wow.
Oh,
Wow.
That's a great story.
That's really terrific.
So that's what makes it that type of thing.
Yeah. Well, we're just kind of doing a program today about, you know, just learning more about it so the audience can just get a little more. Maybe it'll perk some people's interest to participate. Is there some kind of pitch you would like to put out there to some people in the audience that might be thinking, I got to find out more about this program, either from being able to refer people to it, to be involved in it, that need some work and interaction, or from someone that might want to be a volunteer?
I think now, back then, there was no instructions or classes or anything, and now there's a nice education on it. And anybody who wants to do something and really likes kids and wants to help them, and things have changed on how they do it now. So I think it's a lot better now and quicker for people, kids that need to be adopted. Sometimes it used to take a long time, and now it's. I think it's a lot faster now. They don't wait so long.
Okay.
And the kids are really. I think the kids aren't all. I had a lot of juvenile delinquents, and they aren't all bad. They just need to be listened to, and sometimes that's all it takes is just hearing what they say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well,
I just want to echo something you said, Bill. I feel like I've met so many wonderful people doing this. I've met wonderful kids. I don't think I've met any bad kids. They're all wonderful in their own way. And even though families are really struggling, I am often moved by their commitment, their love for their children. They're up against a lot of really hard things. Many of our parents were not parented well themselves. And so they don't really have a great model for being parents, and they're really trying to learn, and they're working hard, and I admire their efforts. Even sometimes those who are not successful and who reach that really painful decision to relinquish their children, every time I've seen that, it's been done out of love and caring, and it's impossible to do this and not be moved by those experiences in a really very powerful, positive way.
Great.
I agree with that. One thing they asked, they had a little paper you filled out. What are your pluses? What are your minuses? And I said, well, my biggest fault is I'm too soft.
Yeah. Great. Great. That's great.
Puffing up a little bit. But you're right about the kids. They aren't bad. They're brought. A lot of them are brought up wrong because their parents are brought up wrong. And they think that's the correct way to act.
Wow. Well, I want to thank you for giving us some of your time and sharing that. And I hope you're going to get some kind of fabulous award. If you guys have an annual dinner of Guardian Ad Litems, man, you better be recognized. And, and Diane and Mimi will have a link to this program. So, if you want to check out, hear yourself on it, it's great. But thank you very much for your insight.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Great. So some of the stuff that, kind of brought up, and I know I got the high sign that we got to wrap it up in a couple of minutes, is the idea of the listening, and maybe, and maybe the constancy. A Guardian Ad Litem will be there, sort of, hopefully an objective, constant, as whatever the concept is, mediator or not, but you're just listening and there and keeping a history to keep the consistency of whatever the case is, with all these kinds of changes that could happen and players being involved in it and stuff. So is there any quick parting remark you would like to add to the program as coordinator, Diane, or as a Guardian Ad Litem? Are you still a Guardian Ad Litem, or you just putting your
I'm still a Guardian Ad Litem. I've been doing it for 10 years.
Oh, you're getting up there. Watch out.
Yeah.
Watch out, Bill. Watch out, Bill. she's
he's
very
saying-
competitive.
I think
can
he's
feel
saying
it.
I just want to actually encourage people, anybody who has interest and has some flexible time, it is an incredible opportunity and experience. It's an honor, actually, to have this responsibility and to connect with people at a really stressful, critical point in their lives, and try to be a force for their own successes.
Yeah, it's great. Bibi?
And I think we discover how resilient children are too. Their strengths it's a very hopeful thing to see how they pull through and the life force.
Great. Well, I want to thank you both for being on the program. And it sounds like in anything, the best thing we can do is just pretty much respect people and try to talk to them as human beings, that we're all kind of equal in a way, and have something to listen or to say. I mean, whether I work with people in the arts or social services, hospice, it's all about experiencing this journey of life and kind of having a respect for it and everything. So thank you for this great work. We hope people will call in and, help you out. I'm sure do you need funds in your program, or is it sort of funded by the state, or do you do fundraising? Well, we can't get too much into that.
Yeah, we don't do fundraising
Okay,
at this
so you don't have to
point.
send a
It's
donation
state-funded
in,
program,
great,
right.
but you could definitely help in many,
Yeah.
many ways to be
Yeah.
supportive. Thank you. And I want to thank Fact TV for providing us with such a resource in the community to share information. And I want to thank the underwriters from the Vermont Arts Council, the National Endowment for the Arts, First Light, Chroma Technology, for also helping ramp continue on programs being involved in the community. Until next time, see you on the square.
Thanks, Rob.
RAMP would like to acknowledge organizations that help make this program possible through Fact TV, including the Vermont Arts Council, the National Endowment for the Arts, Chroma Technology, the Wyndham Foundation, and Stewart Property Management.